Shall we start? Good evening, everyone. My name is Luis Fraga, and I am a professor of political science and director of the Institute for Latino Studies. And thank you very much for joining us in what is now our third major event in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month this year. You may have noticed on the University of Notre Dame website a few days ago that Father John issued a statement that acknowledged the importance of Latinx communities, Latinx students, and Hispanic communities generally to the university and to the country. And we're very appreciative of his effort in recognizing the importance of Hispanic Heritage Month. As many of you already know, the Institute for Latino Studies advances understanding of the fastest growing and youngest population in the United States and in the US Catholic Church. I think we've dropped to second in terms of fastest growing. If you think of ethnic racial groups, I believe Asian and Asian American groups are now growing at a faster rate, but we have been, at least since 2000, the largest identifiable ethno-racial group in the country. ILS, the Institute for Latino Studies, strengthens the University of Notre Dame's mission to prepare transformative leaders in all sectors, including the professions, business, art, politics, faith, and family life among Latino communities, Latinx communities, and all members of our society. We are just delighted to be able to collaborate and support the Hispanic Alumni of Notre Dame HAND in their efforts to share their life experiences and professional expertise to help us all better reflect on choices, even those of us who are as old as I am, may still have in thinking through our futures and our careers, but especially for our students who are at those critical points of deciding what they will do for the rest of their lives, or at least in the next major stage of their lives, once they finish their studies here at Notre Dame, or decide what it is, if they haven't decided already, will major in here at Notre Dame. We've done this in the past and it's been extremely successful, and we hear from our students that it is one of the most informative and exciting events that they have ever attended, and I'm sure our event today will be the same. I'd like to ask each of the panelists at the appropriate time to introduce themselves, but we're going to begin with Christina Gonzalez, who will lead us through a description of HAND and its activities, and then take us through a 15-minute discussion by each of our panelists as to what their work currently is. Christina?
Thank you, Luis. And first and foremost, I want to welcome everybody, to all our alumni and to all our students. Welcome to what is now the second annual Somos ND Success Stories as part of the celebration for Hispanic Heritage Month. And we're excited to have you all here. We have some great panelists. We have 4 panelists that are going to be speaking to you today, but also if there's some other alumni that are on, please feel free to raise your hand and join in and give your experiences as well. I'm sure you'll have many stories to share for our students. Secondly, I want to, for the alumni that are on here, so Hispanic Alumni of Notre Dame, we represent you, all the Hispanic alumni of Notre Dame, and advocate for you. We advocate through for not only for the students, but also faculty and also alumni. I mean, that's our job, that's our role. And there are many different things that we do to encourage community and participation from everybody. But the most thing that we're excited about right now we have some new swag. And so I want to show this to you. So this is kind of one of the new things. This is our the Calavera tumbler. And it's really, really cool. It says Somos on here too. And so that is for sale. So we want to make sure if you want to avail yourself to any of this swag. Also, the Yo Amo, I gotta get my camera right here, Yo Amo ND shirt, t-shirt. And this is our new favorite item also. It's the Yo Amo ND tortilla warmer. So it actually, you can put it in the microwave. So those are our 3 new items of swag. If you are interested in any, please let us know. We're trying to get an online store set up, but if not, just email me at ha.alumnirelations@alumni.nd.edu, and I'll put the email address in the chat. Feel free to put in your orders and we will try to get your orders filled as soon as possible. That also is leading up to something else that's very exciting for us. It's Reunion 2022, which will be June 2nd to the 5th of 2022. It's a Hispanic Alumni Reunion. We encourage you all to come back home, come back to Notre Dame for Reunion. If you haven't done so, if it's not your year even, please come. We've got some great events planned for Reunion. We're also kind of celebrating a belated 20th anniversary to ILS. Which we were supposed to have done last year and then we weren't able to do that. So we want to try and do that next year as well. So you'll be on the lookout for information for Reunion, which should come out soon after the first of the year. So that's really exciting as well. We also want you to register with Irish Compass. We talked about mentoring students. And one easy way and very good way to do that is through Irish Compass and registering with Irish Compass, and in particular, Interconnected ND, which pairs Hispanic Alumni of Notre Dame with first-gen students. And Sharon, if you're on still and you want to make a quick plug for that, as well as the Alumni Business Directory, I'll kind of punt it to you for a couple of seconds to give a quick shout out for those two things that we're working with you on.
Yes, yes. Hello, everyone. Happy to be part of this evening. I am going to scoot across campus as we do give the first generation students the opportunity for them to identify and communicate with a first gen alum who's opted in to serve as a mentor. So last year we had 116 mentors for 95 students, all first gen. It was very successful. So this round 2 tonight and tomorrow night, we'll be there working with students so they can find and match themselves to their mentor, a little bit more ownership. So very excited about this. If anyone wants to volunteer as questions, just send it to irishcompass@nd.edu. And then just a coming attractions, we're launching an alumni business directory for Notre Dame graduates who own businesses up and employ up to 500 employees, whatever that business is. We would love to have you join this directory to build a community. And those of us who may not own businesses are also able to participate and support other donor businesses. So be on the lookout. We'll of course be making a very public announcement in November, but I appreciate the opportunity to share with you tonight. Thanks so much, Christina.
Thank you, Sharon. And just a couple more things real quick. So one of the ways that we like to focus on our alumni is our Orale section, which is in our newsletter, but we're really going to do something a little different with that this year. So we really want to focus on our alumni in certain industries. So please, again, email me at ha.alumnirelations@alumni.nd.edu and tell us about yourself. Tell us what you're doing. Tell us where you are. Tell us about your classmates that you're familiar with and what they're doing. And we will focus all of you on our Orale section. So we really want to give shout outs to all our alumni. And then one more thing is Dia de los Muertos is coming up. And so we will be sending out information, and the Diversity Council also will be sending out information on how to have those events with your local clubs. We also will be pushing out some information on how to set up your own altar. And we want to see what you do. We want to see what your events you're having either locally in your clubs or just yourself and your altar. And so we can focus on those and put those on our social media as well and share those with everyone. So be on the lookout for those two things, for Dia de los Muertos and also the altar. And if you want to get involved with Diversity Council or Hispanic Alumni of Notre Dame Board, again, email me. I'll put my email in the chat once I finish talking. But let us know if you want to get involved. We're always looking for volunteers. So with that, I will start by letting our panelists introduce themselves. We'll start with Alex. Alex, you ready to go? Why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about you?
Certainly. Can everyone hear me okay? Good evening. I'm Alex Montoya, and I'm coming to you live and direct from beautiful San Diego, California. Um, there was once a phrase that a classmate of mine used, which said, God writes straight with crooked lines. God writes straight with crooked lines, meaning that um, you may think that your life has a lot of twists and turns, but in reality, God is leading you in the way that He wants to lead you, even through some adversities and through some challenges. And ultimately, you see that it all works out according to the beautiful plan that He has for our life, which I think is pretty much a staple of anyone who's a part of Notre Dame. And within that spirit, that really kind of defines both my journey to Notre Dame and my journey since Notre Dame. And as I've always said, after 4 years, I may have left Notre Dame, but Notre Dame never left me. And it's always been just a critical part of my existence and my being every single day of my life. I am an immigrant. I was born in Medellin, Colombia, and I immigrated to the United States at age 4. I was born with a disability, and my parents sent me to this country to live with family members because the opportunities for me would be better in the US than in Colombia. And so education was always emphasized within my family. And I had probably an earlier awareness of the importance of education and the importance of college, probably more so than most of my peers growing up. And ever since I was in junior high, I had my sights set on the University of Notre Dame. When I was accepted, it was my number one school by far. I didn't want to even consider anywhere else. I definitely wanted to go to South Bend. And I remember before I arrived to campus, my aunt, who really became like a second mom to me, she gave me this piece of advice that I didn't really appreciate at the time, but it grew as time went on, and I'll explain. She said, when you go to Notre Dame, the thing you need to do above all is make sure that you seek out other Latino students. They will be the ones that will really be critical to your existence and to your success. And that really wasn't something that registered right away because, again, I came from a Latin American country. I grew up in Southern California. My high school was primarily a Latino Hispanic student population. So I was kind of used to Latinos being the majority. And when I got to South Bend, it was quite a culture shock. And I saw right away what she meant, that it was going to be an extension of my familia. I see that our question here for the panelists is regarding leadership activities and what we got involved in. The very first thing that I did when the fall semester began, I began Notre Dame in the fall of 1992. I'm a 96 graduate. And in the fall of 92, the first thing that I did was run for office of one of the Latino organizations, which at the time was LULAC. League of United Latin American Citizens. I'm not sure what the name might be now. Now I will say this: looking back on it, with hindsight being 2020 and 2020, vision being perfect and hindsight vision. Looking back on it, I I I wish I maybe wouldn't have run for an elected position so early, because I definitely fell behind in my studies, and I needed to learn how to adjust to collegiate curriculum and academia. And I wish I would have gotten more settled in first. But I made it through and I adjusted. And that is a piece of advice that I try to give to first year students starting out, is to do that. Is number one, get settled academically, but then by all means, make sure that you insert yourselves into leadership roles and do things to contribute to the cause. And I very much saw that what my mom meant was critical. The Latino students on campus became my friends, my family, my support system. Again, made even more crucial as a student with a disability. I probably had different needs more than most. As someone who, like many, was homesick, after the first few months because I missed California and I missed the warm weather and I missed the tortillas. I got to get one of those tortilla makers, by the way. It became very much an extension of me. And I quickly saw that I loved the university and I loved the institution, and I was willing to overcome the challenges because of that love that I just inherently had for the university. And the only way that I was going to do that was to be able to continue to connect and rely on my Latino family, academically, socially, in the dorm, everything. In fact, I've got people here on the panel in the audience, like my great friend Valeria Alonso, who has always been a wonderful inspiration to me. And I mean, gosh, Val, we've been friends now for about what, 25 years. It's pretty crazy. But that's the kind of relationships that we nurtured. The Latino family at Notre Dame has always been exactly that. It's always been a family, excuse me, to help you get you through the tough times and help you rejoice in the wonderful times. In '96, I graduated with a communications and theater degree. I moved back to San Diego. And, I think Notre Dame's motto is try anything or do anything. I'm kind of the poster boy for that because I've had various iterations of my career. I have worked in professional sports. I have worked for nonprofit organizations. I have worked for business organizations. But the wonderful thing is, no matter the different fields that I moved to or jumped around to, my communications degree from Notre Dame was helpful in each and every one of those fields and each and every one of those jobs. There was something that I was able to derive from my major that ended up coming true in those jobs. From 2015 to 2021, I ran my own business. So I was also a business owner. I ran a motivational communications company doing motivational speaking and writing. And the pandemic made that really hard to sustain. So at the beginning of this past summer, I went back to work in public relations and media relations. And I currently work for a media relations company in San Diego while doing my writing and speaking on the side. And I will tell you that it is one of the more challenging jobs, excuse me, that I've had. The workload is pretty tremendous and pretty fierce, as well as the fact that we are still work from home, which makes it a little more challenging. But every single day, I find that I am telling myself, number one, I'm really enjoying this job and I'm really enjoying the company that I'm working for, and I'm willing to overcome the challenges that I have with the job because I really do enjoy it. That reminds me a lot of Notre Dame. And number two, just the aspect of time management and having self-discipline and really believing in yourself to be able to do the job effectively are values that very much were nurtured at Notre Dame. So again, Notre Dame was a place that after 4 years, I may have left the university, but the university never left me. It's very much an organic part of my existence today. All of my closest friends from across the country remain Domers. I absolutely love and believe in the university and her mission, and believe that the Latino community was my lifeblood for thriving and continuing to be a proud alumnus today.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex, so much. Timmy, I've got you on the screen next. So Timmy, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Timmy Aguilar, and I'm the president and CEO of Aguilar Public Relations. I've run my business for about 16 years, and we focus on public affairs and public relations and public policy. So we do multiple different things at our agency, and I like to say we focus on infrastructure, whether it's building broadband networks, or it's building transportation, or how we, solve problems related to healthcare. It could be anything, but it's all infrastructure related. let's see. So I'm a 91 grad, and you know, I think one of the questions that you put in the chat is, you know, what leadership role did you have while you were at Notre Dame? And I would say that I too was a communications major. They called it COF, and now it's FTT. But I was also a government major. So I was a double major in both of those. And my leadership would be more around, you know, can being in band be a leader? I think so. So that was a really fun time. I was part of a big community, a part of something bigger, something that really challenged me, and that was a lot of fun. But also in my, on a serious note, in terms of FTT, is what they call it now. All of my films, we had a pretty small department. We didn't have the DPAC at the time. We had like a room that was maybe with like, that held 12 people, and where we did our films, et cetera. So Alex understands, and it was not huge, but everything that I did was always community focused. And I did a film for the homeless center. I would do something for the Center for Social Concerns, and I would do kind of like mini corporate industrials, which then launched me into being a video producer, doing corporate industrials for AT&T, and then from there, just going on and traveling across the world as executive producer. So lots of great opportunities, lots of great fun. So that's a little bit about me. I know that there are many students here, and so I also think that this is, you know, about you. And just looking back in terms of things I learned at ND, I just want to say first and foremost, and I probably should have started with this, that, you know, when I met with the provost earlier this year, and I basically said, Provost Miranda, we have been waiting for you. Do not leave. We have been waiting for you. And so I will say this too, to the students. We have been waiting for you. You belong here, and don't doubt any minute that you don't belong here. I don't think you'd ever get that feeling, but sometimes when things are tough, when you're a little lonely, you have my email. I'm here to tell you, you belong here, and you are so smart, so brilliant, and there's a lot of great things that you're capable of. So I will leave it at that and go to the other panelists, but I think it's important to look at the value that each of you students, each of you brings, and what you bring to the table and what you're going to do in terms of what you accomplish in the world.
Thank you so much, Timmy, and you're exactly right. And so we'll go on to our next panelist, Liz. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you too.
Great. So I am Liz Bodemer. My pronouns are she, her, and ella. I am right now the DEI policy and research analyst and senior program manager. It's a long title there at the Law School Admissions Council. So when you think of applying to law school, you take the law school admission test, the LSAT. That's the company I work for. And my work primarily focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion, not just improving access, but really addressing equity in the pipeline. And so I'm a 2009 grad. So it doesn't seem like it, but for me, it's been a journey to get to who I am and where I am today. And a lot of that, if not most of that, started at Notre Dame. When I think about the question that was posed to us about leadership activity, I like to change it a little bit to student engagement activity. I look back and I think about how I was involved at Notre Dame really just set the tone for my entire trajectory. So let me explain. So I was part of the sociology club. I majored in sociology. I worked for ILS. I worked for the Dr. Gail Cardenas for 3 years. And I was part of the summer service learning program. So though each of those played a huge role in my life. And I'm going to start with ILS. I'm first generation. I mean, first generation, everything. First generation and graduate from kindergarten, y'all. Okay, I'm from the East Coast, from Maryland, outside of DC. My parents came from El Salvador, fleeing a civil war. So, you know, when I got into Notre Dame, I smashed their wildest dreams, right? And it was Notre Dame wasn't a top school for me because I didn't even know what a top school was. You want to know how I applied, why I applied to Notre Dame? Because I saw the movie Rudy during health class. No lie. That's how that happened. And it landed me the great, amazing 4 years of my life to this day. I mean, I have Notre Dame gears everywhere. And so at ILS is where I really got to be surrounded by anything Latinx, the history, the people, the diversity within the community across the country, the stories that I was never told, the history I was never shown while growing up in this country, right? Sociology operationalized how I thought about my history and who I am into research. And my summer service learning experience centered at the core of who I am and what I believe in, which is centering on my community and community service. That took me to law school. It took me to a PhD program in sociology, to today where I get to do diversity, equity, and inclusion work centering on our communities, our underserved, marginalized communities, to make a difference. And that all started because I went to Notre Dame and I surrounded myself by great people, surrounded myself from really great friends. I see you, Christina, in there, and in the audience. And it was a really big growing opportunity for me that really started everything. And so I'm extremely grateful of the time I got to spend there. I mean, extremely grateful of the people I got to meet, the envelope I got to push outside of my limits, the world it opened up. So my biggest takeaway for students today is to really immerse yourself, right? You know, you'll have your moments of homesickness, you'll have your moments of doubt, but there are good people around you, and there are good people not even on campus. We're here, echoing up the other alums, the other panelists here. We're here for you. We've been there, and you can do this. You belong here. These are spaces sometimes we have to carve out. ILS, when I think about my experience, was that space. It literally was carved out for people like us. And it was such a great space to study, and it was such a great space to work in. And so I continue to do that in my career today. So I'm gonna stop there and let someone else to introduce themselves.
Luis, were there some questions that you wanted to ask Luis, or, we've had so many comments about ILS. I mean, certainly jump in with that too.
Sure. Let me ask a question of our panelists so far first, and then maybe talk a little bit about ILS and what we're doing now, and then use that as a way to transition where our Associate Director, Paloma Garcia Lopez, will pose questions from the audience, so to speak, from the fellow participants in our discussion. So a question for each of you, and we'll go in the same order that you went in. And Christina, we can start with you if you would like, certainly. And the question is as follows. What advice would you give yourself now, after all of your experiences and all of your professional experiences? What advice would you give yourself now if you were just starting college?
All right, I'll go first real quick, and then Alex shoot next. Do it all, do everything, take advantage of every opportunity. Don't be scared. You won't have this opportunity again. This really, truly is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and take it suck all the juice out. Take it for all that it is. That would be my primary advice. Alex, what about you?
I think two main things. I think number one, very similar to what you just said, realize that everything is temporary, meaning any adversities that you have are temporary, and you're going to get through it, and you're going to get stronger, and you're not going to be defeated, and it's going to be a great life lesson, no matter what that might be. But also the great times, the successes, the victories, appreciate them, celebrate them with all of your loved ones around you at Notre Dame, because you may feel like you are with these people forever, because you're around them every day right now. But that isn't necessarily the case. After 4 to 5 years, you may not be together. So like she said, suck it suck every moment, out of possible existence, because you need to appreciate every single second, that you are together. The other thing too is, if you are a first year student, try to have as best of a long view as possible, in the sense of, what are you going to do to leave a legacy at Notre Dame? Notre Dame is a place of legends. There are legends all over the campus, whether they be football heroes or someone like Julian Zamora, people that leave their mark on the university that are still talked about today. I am very proud of the fact that within my 4 years there, I helped to create the Disability Services Center that's at Notre Dame. It was very much a collective effort and a team effort, but I was very proud to be a part of that. That was an opportunity that I saw that I could make an impact. There are so many opportunities that you have in your dorm, on campus, in the South Bend community, to leave a mark and leave an impact somewhere. But you have to ask yourself what that is, what you are wired to do, and how you can make an impact that lasts past your time there.
To build on what everyone else has said, the first thing that comes to mind, and I reflected about quite a bit about this not too long ago, about who I was, especially my freshman year. First thing is, you are enough. We too often, especially in that first year, you doubt yourself so much, and this call can look in a particular way, and it can feel safe and it can feel like home, but there will be moments on campus where it doesn't even look that way, right? And the very first tip I want to give everyone is that you are enough. You are enough, and and I'm going to push Alex's advice a little further. And I'm going to say, you are a legend. The fact that you're here, you're a legend already. You have accomplished a lot. And so keep building, keep growing. A lot of new things start with fear, but that just shows you have to do it. So head on, dive right in and have fun.
Well, I would say, we're all at different, you are all at different parts of your journey. So you may be at the shy part, you may be at the I am trying everything part. I don't know. But there are so many different things that right off the bat that you should make sure that you take away, in addition to everything that everyone has said here. The first I think of for a freshman would be keep a journal. There's so many experiences you don't even remember, because there are so many neat things, neat opportunities. The second is meet with folks. I know, like, sometimes you don't want to, you may be a little shy, but then you get some boldness. I know that the provost has hours for students. Find a topic, pick 15 minutes and go meet with the provost. She's made herself available. I've always regretted I didn't even think to do that ever. I think it builds your character. I think it shows that you can meet with leaders. I think you'll probably recognize that person walking again. Not that you don't have that access, but you're given access right now. I didn't have an ILS when I attended. I think I must be the oldest person on the Zoom. That's okay. But we didn't have that. And you do. You have a lot of great opportunities in front of you. The other I would say is take courses in those electives that are not in your major. And I know many folks would say that on different things, but like, I wish I could have taken a history of jazz class. I definitely did not have any type of Latino studies classes. I am so envious of everyone that's been able to do that. I had to do a lot of things on my own, and I'm not criticizing the university. We've evolved, but I did take things in gender studies, which I really loved, part of my major. But I wish I would have taken an economics course. I wish I would have taken an accounting course. It would have made me a better business person. But I didn't think what can I use in a practical world for business? And then the other thing I would say is today, make an appointment with the Career Center so that you can kind of see what's out there. And even if you think you're going to grad school, med school, you think you're going to get a job at your dad's shop, I don't know, whatever it is, get out there and get some interview experience. Maybe there's going to be a different path or a different door, and start looking at what you can do in terms of what you're going to do after. It's never too early to think about that. It's never too early to start looking at what some of your options are. And then finally, I would say travel. And it doesn't have to be, for a whole semester abroad. I was very reluctant to do that because I was already working. My parents were already working their buns off to put me to college. There was a lot. So the last thing I was going to do is say, hey, can you spend a little extra and send me, to study abroad? I didn't even think of it, quite honestly. But there are ways you can do it. There are opportunities where you can go with the CSC to volunteer somewhere for a week. There's opportunities in the summer. So many places to travel that are Notre Dame as your core that, save up for it during the summer when you work and don't buy some clothes, whatever it is. I don't know your situation, but there's so many neat things that I just look back and think, gosh, I wish I would have done that. And then this is kind of a silly one, but there's so many neat athletic facilities. So I know coming out, I think like you have to buy a gym membership. I have to do all these things, and you have great classes, great, a lake to run around. I started running there, never thought I would do it. Just, have fun, take risks, get as much as you can out of your classes, everything everyone else said. Yes, you belong there, but what are you going to make of it? So that's mine.
Thank you all. Once again, my name is Paloma Garcia Lopez, and I'm the Associate Director of the Institute for Latino Studies. And while I love ILS, I did get a question from the audience that says, outside of ILS, when you were undergraduates, what were some interactions you had with faculty, staff, or students, student organizations? What pieces of your experience made you feel welcome? The university right now is working on making the campus a welcome home environment for students from all backgrounds. So what made it feel like home for you?
Well, I'll jump in if I may. What made it feel like home for me, and this is something that I certainly urge each student to do, is were the faculty and administrators who very much agreed to sign on as mentors. Everyone should absolutely seek out a mentor or more than one, whether that person be within your major or just your field of study or anything, or whether you just like them as a person and you just hold them up as a great role model and think, hey, I'd like to be like you someday. Mentors can serve a variety of roles. Very similar to what was said earlier, you are a legend and you are someone that has greatness within you, and your mentor will help bring that out, showing you some of the pitfalls along the way, and maybe showing you some tough questions that you may want to ask yourself. You don't know what you don't know, and so mentors can very much help within that role. So seek out a mentor or two or three, and there are more people willing to serve in that role than you might realize.
I'll echo what Alex said. I had a phenomenal mentor who was assigned, I can't remember through what kind of a program. There are so many opportunities, so many ways that the institution is trying to be that facilitator between you and a potential mentor. Take advantage of that. Mine was a white woman we had nothing in common, but the way that she was able to guide me, the way she treated me, the way she welcomed me, made a lot of a difference for someone who did not know how to navigate higher education. And probably the most important part in trying to find community and space, it comes down to, for me at least, it was friends. Those people who I can connect with, those people who were welcoming, those people who included me, those people to this day, I can pick up the phone and we can just pick up where we left off, either yesterday or 5 years ago when we last saw each other. That's what it comes down to, is that peer-to-peer connection.
Well, I would say, so much of Notre Dame is built around communities and clubs and dorms and all of that. And to me, being a part of something sometimes means putting yourself out there. So some of us, it comes naturally. So, for me, it was band because I made it. And so I was automatically part of a team, just like you probably advise your kids in high school, like you're part of a team, it kind of gives you that little bit of oomph. But there were other things that you can look at that I felt a lot of comfort with. A lot of folks on the floor of my dorm, like we were really close, and we found a lot of commonalities. We found people that we hung out with. Same with the Institute for Peace Studies. There were a few folks that I would hang out with them. I would go on trips, through the CSC or the Peace Institute. So, there are ways to do that. I guess one of the biggest things that you have to think about is, we are all different. The students there are all different. Everybody has their story. So there's always going to be some common thread, some common, denominator between all of you. First of all, you're all students there. So what is it that you have in common that can give you that comfort or that person? And, a lot of times, no, I didn't have the history of probably most of the folks in my dorm, but, I didn't know much about them either. So my big advice would be, don't shut people out, but, bring people in. So it'll help you in the world. You're not, as Alex said before, you're not going to be in a community that looks like you everywhere you live. You're going to be in boardrooms where you're the only person that looks like you. How are you going to have a conversation then? How are you going to find that common denominator? You're going to be in the community advocating for something. Well, everybody's not going to agree with you. So try it out while you're here. Go to stuff that you don't agree with and listen. A lot of it is listening. So anyway, my comfort would be, everything everyone said, what I just said, but also I spent a lot of time at the grotto. I said a lot of prayers. I was in Lewis, so I would stop by, and I really felt that it grounded me. I think when we all go back, we still have that same, Notre Dame is a special place, but we also have it because we're really grounded in a lot of faith and a lot of hope.
I have a question that I'd like to pose to each of you before I talk a little bit about ILS, and then we'll see if there are more questions from our audience that you might want to respond to. But I think we have our fifth, I guess it's fair to say, panelist, Dr. Christine Munoz-Glass from the class of 2000. And I would like to ask her to take a few minutes, maybe even 5 or 10, to introduce yourself, talk about yourself, and talk a bit about your undergraduate experiences at Notre Dame, if you would, please.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, everyone, and apologies for the delay. Clinic ran a little over. My name is Christine Munoz-Glass. I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas. Attended Notre Dame from 96 to 2000. And then I know you read my bio. I'm a physician currently. I'm a psychiatrist, dual board certified in general psychiatry as well as addiction medicine. My time after Notre Dame took me a lot of places. I'm also a Navy veteran. I served for 7 years where I did my psychiatry training as well. So first generation physician in the family. Came from El Paso. So I don't know if many of you are familiar with El Paso. So border city, definitely did not grow up with a lot of money. So my experience has been, my time at Notre Dame has been, I remember it as one of the best experiences of my life. My intention for coming on today is to talk about the struggles and be very upfront about the struggles that human beings face, that Latinas face, Latinos in general face when moving towards graduate school, looking at medical school, even serving as an officer. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll look at the time so I don't go over. When I left El Paso to go to Notre Dame, I mean, I looked like the quintessential El Pasoan, I should say. I was in my polo shirt, jeans, and like my tennis shoes. I didn't initially fit in. So it was really, I lived in Farley my whole 4 years. So what was good about living there all 4 years is I got to know a lot of the people, really build a community. But during my time when I was at Notre Dame, I had some family struggles. My father became ill and then passed away when I was a summer before, actually, no, I say again, my senior year. I took my semester abroad. I came back home and then I went to UTEP for a year, which is the University of Texas at El Paso, for a semester when my father was supposed to get a liver transplant. And why I bring this up is because it was a really big point in my life, obviously, for the directions that I went, but also for the community that I developed. So a lot of the folks in the class of 2000 that were involved in, La Alianza, in Coro, in my dorm too, we all really grew together. And it was through, again, struggles where you really see a lot of camaraderie. And at Notre Dame, I don't know, most of you know Father Pat Neary. He was one of the priests that was a big part in my understanding and development of my spirituality in the context of suffering. So my time at Notre Dame was both beautiful and very hard. Some of the struggles that I encountered while at Notre Dame, I caught the tail end of some of the discussions of like the difficulty at times for like being the only one that looks like you. And sometimes I did feel that way. I remember 2 distinct times where my rectress, after my dad passed senior year, we had a memorial mass that Father Pat gave at Farley Hall, and it just happened to fall on Diversity Week. And the hall evaluations came out later that at the end of the year, asking for people to give feedback on, all these events that the hall did. And my father's mass was listed as a diversity event, again, because his last name's Muertos. And that really, it definitely affected me, but I went directly, I'm an A to B type of person. So I went A to B directly to my hall rectress and brought that up. And she, like, I didn't realize that we did that, and she apologized. That was one time that really affected me, but again, it taught me to speak with individuals and kind of understand where they're coming from, but also assert how it felt and relay that in a very respectful manner. So another big event that happened that I think shaped me was when I was arts and letters pre-professional, science initially, and then I switched to ALPP, and then I went anthropology. But I remember, and another fellow physician of mine, class of 2000, who's a very successful, great OBGYN doctor, told me the same thing. We met with Father Walter, and Father Walter told me that I couldn't be a doctor. And it was one of those situations too, where I was like, I'm sorry, I know you're a priest, but you're wrong. And I bring this up not because I'm trying to throw shade on anybody at Notre Dame, but just kind of some of the things and barriers that might happen. So one was in regards to my academic pursuits, and one was in regards to just my last name and where I grew up. And so I bring these up because sometimes there's speed bumps in the road for some of the dreams or some of the goals and aspirations that one can have. And I largely look back at the strength I received from my faith, from understanding where I came from, understanding where I can go, and then also the camaraderie that I built around me. Some of my best friends are class of 2000. My comadre, compadre are from class of 2000 for my daughter. And I think that really contributed to my experience overall. I can talk about some of the experiences as an officer, female officer, Latina, talk about the difference. I started as Dr. Munoz, and how I'm treated differently as Dr. Glass. So just a lot of interesting things to discuss. But my intention to come here is to say, yes, there will be some speed bumps along the road for a dream, but always pursue, always push. Don't give up, even if it's a priest or a hall rectress or an officer who tells you you can't do it. You get to decide. You get to choose what you do. And so for anyone interested in going in the medical field, the last piece of advice I always have is please don't ever be the admissions committee and the applicant. Just be the applicant. You never know where you can go and how far you can go. No matter what, you never know how far you can go. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Christine. Appreciate your honesty and your transparency, as all of you have done. I have another question for all of you in the group. What have been your most significant, or maybe pick one most significant leadership experience that you've had since leaving Notre Dame? Professional, personal, community-based, church-based, whatever the nature of the leadership activity has been. What has that activity been, and why has it been important to you? Shall we start with Christina?
All right, I'll start. There's kind of been a lot, but probably the most recent one and the most important one now is that I'm managing partner of my law office, my law firm's law office here in New York City. I started practicing law just to kind of my history, other than being on the board of Hispanic Alumni of Notre Dame, is that I'm an attorney. I started practicing law in Texas. I'm from Texas originally. I started practicing in Laredo, Texas. My father's from Laredo, Texas. So go border town, all right, El Paso. So I know about the struggles, right? I'm lucky enough to not be first generation, but rather third generation college. My grandmother actually, a Mexican citizen, attended Rice Institute, which is now Rice University, in the late 1920s, early 1930s, which is just amazing and incredible. And so there really wasn't a lot that, the expectation was very high, right? For everyone in my family to go to college and to achieve and succeed. So there's always been that set a goal, achieve it, set another goal, achieve it, set another goal, achieve it. So my leadership role now as managing partner of my office here, my law firm here in New York City, managing people and managing, in Texas, it was very easy. It was because a lot of people are Mexican American in San Antonio. So it was very easy to have that camaraderie or that in common with folks. Here it's very different. In New York City, you have all walks of life, everything, right? And that was not as accustomed to that. And so that has been very important to me to learn about, different cultures and being more sensitive to different races and things that you just never thought were a thing, I guess I could say, are. And it just makes you have to be very sensitive. It's calmed me a lot. When I first started practicing law, I wanted to say, when do I get to be that lawyer that can yell at staff and that can, be like that, hang up on people and do that kind of thing that I see men around me doing all the time and judges around me doing all the time. When can I do that? When is that going to be me that can do that? And I have discovered that, one, you don't have to do that to be effective, and two, you shouldn't do it. And it's just much better way to practice if you don't do those kinds of things. And so I've learned that, and hopefully have taught that to the people that work for me. And that's just, it's really important to me to I hire a lot of younger folks, and so to talk to them and tell them that, how to be responsible and how to be at work on time and how to dress appropriately and those kinds of things that matter, that they may not have had that guidance before. So that's probably the most important for me. Alex, do you want to jump in next?
Sure. So in terms of leadership, or as Liz pointed out earlier, engagement, in 2016, I was just fresh off of being laid off of a job that I had for about 10 years. It was a dream job. I very much invested my identity in it, and just had a hard realization when I was laid off, and had to seek out a new path for myself. At that time, a friend of mine created a scholarship foundation for students with disabilities, and asked me to be the board chair for that organization. And I declined because I said, I've never been the chair of anything in my life. I will gladly join your board. I will gladly join a committee, but I'm just not prepared to be a board chair. And I thought about it, and I thought about everything that Notre Dame taught me in terms of growth, in terms of challenging yourself, in terms of seeing not necessarily who you are at that moment exclusively, but who you want to be in the future and who you want to grow into. And this individual, like myself, was also someone with a disability. And I thought about it and I said, what message am I giving to him if I don't take on this challenge, and if I don't take on the challenge of helping us to go out and find students with disabilities that we could help award scholarships to. So I went back to him and said, if you're willing to reconsider, I'd like to take you up on your offer and be your board chair. It's going to be a lot of on-the-job training for me, but I think I'm up to the task. And I ended up spending the next 4.5 years as board chair of his organization, and learned so much and felt so rewarded by the experience that I ended up creating my own foundation as well, celebrating people with disabilities and immigrant communities as well, the Alex Montoya Foundation. And I say that not to give a shameless plug, but to just talk about how anytime you get the chance to be in a leadership position, certainly evaluate it. Never be afraid to say no if it's just too much. Always put your mental health and your physical health first, but know that you are enough and you can take on these challenges as opportunities. Here's the thing. As we talk about equity, and we talk about diversity, and we talk about inclusion, things won't change until we change them. If we just wait around for the world to change around us, it's just not going to happen. We are the leaders that Notre Dame is grooming. The students that are students right now are the leaders that Notre Dame is grooming. And so recognize that when an opportunity comes, it might seem like a challenge, it might seem like a fierce task, but it really is an opportunity to grow and to impact change.
I'll go next. I guess I would look at it. I mean, like you said, especially being on this panel, everybody has so many great different stories of an example of their leadership. And I just remember when I got married, what our priest said, and he was like, what are you going to do, even as a married couple, what are you going to do in your community? And I think, well, I feel like my biggest, pride, of course, in leadership is starting my own company. At a time I could have done something else and become, a vice president in corporate America or something. I became, the president of Aguilar, and I built my business. I'm pretty proud of that. But I also think that leadership really takes a lot of ownership, and that means owning your leadership as a mom, owning your leadership as a person in your family that everyone comes to, being a leader in the community where you're organizing a function, or being a good board member, or doing something in your church, or teaching Sunday school, whatever it is. I feel pretty proud that I've embraced that. And I think Notre Dame really grooms you to instill that value, or maybe just kind of feed that value you already have. And I also think sometimes that sometimes we drown into leadership. We think, gosh, I can't solve everything. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of pressure. But I also think that it's a gift. And I think each of us has it. I think as students, there's a lot to learn, whether you're going to Mass, whether you're participating in something socially, or in the community, or on campus, et cetera, that you're a natural leader, and it helps you it helps you grow later on. And so it just helps you to continue embracing it.
Liz?
Great. Going off of that great answer. So full disclosure, I'm not Catholic, but there is so much that my experience at Notre Dame instilled in me. And one of the biggest things that I'm very proud of, and that is the current position I hold and the leadership roles that I play within this position at LSAC, is that I get to wake up every morning living up my core value at my job. My core values when it comes to transparency, love, family, equity,
Hello.
inclusion. And it comes down to authenticity, right? And that's part of a long journey for me when it comes to leadership. At the core, it's you and your values and being true to yourself. Since Notre Dame, I came out. I am happily married. I have a beautiful 2-year-old daughter, and I get to live my full authentic self in every way, shape, and form. And that started at Notre Dame.
Wonderful. Thank you, Liz. Christine?
So leadership experience after Notre Dame that really shaped me was actually my first duty station. After I graduated residency, I was a newly trained psychiatrist, board certified, and I went over to 29 Palms, and I was the only psychiatrist on the base for 20,000 Marines and sailors in a time of war. Straight out of residency, department head, and then I did the substance abuse clinic there too. It shaped me. It was the most challenging thing I've ever done. And I left residency. I'm like a gung-ho, like I got this, I can do this. And it really affected me. I learned very quickly that sometimes people get positions in leadership because they want the power. And again, not throwing shade and saying all leaders are bad, saying that some leaders, just like some people, sometimes don't do the right thing. And unfortunately encountered a lot of adversity there. And that's where I think my military experience kind of shaped me into a different person. It's just once you see something, you can't unsee it. Once something is done, you can't undo it. So the example I can have is as the sole psychiatrist, my husband at the time developed a pretty life, cauda equina. It's where like the spinal cord, there's a disc that touches the spinal cord, and he couldn't walk. So he had to get emergency surgery. We were separated. He was living in San Diego at the time, active duty, and I was in 29 Palms. So it's about 3 hours away, 2.5 hours. So he called me and was like, yep, I need surgery. And I immediately said, I have to go. I left work. I put in my leave, but my leadership kind of messed with me and said, well, you can't leave. You're going to be like deemed AWOL. You're going to like get court-martialed if you take off. I'm like, this is my husband. I need to go to him. And so I had like the movie Forrest Gump. I'm dating myself with that movie where like he gets a call from his mom and like, Forrest, I'm sick. And he's like on a boat and he jumps off and he takes off. Like that was my Forrest Gump moment, but I was getting pulled back. And that's one of the instances of many that really affected me, because it was my husband, a person who I love, who I'm worried about, and I want to be by his side for surgery. And when I was en route with my dog and my stuff that I packed up really quickly, I got the call and said, yeah, okay, we'll approve your leave. And that kind of experience really shaped me on how to not be when I'm a leader. And so I know there's a saying my husband says a lot, who again was active duty as well, where you learn the most from bad leadership than from good. And I really think I learned a lot from that. So that's kind of carried me. And that experience after Notre Dame, I prayed a lot. I asked a lot for guidance on what to do and how to handle a lot of many difficult situations. And I know my faith got me through it, but I also know it made me turn in my direction for my career. Like I no longer want a position of leadership. And I hate to use the word burnout. In the physician community, there's a lot of talk about burnout, especially in times of COVID. But I prefer to use the word moral injury. And that occurs when you have to witness something that you disagree with or do something that you disagree with. And I think I carry that with me. And this is one of the struggles, it's like I carry it in a backpack, and I'm just learning now, a while after leaving active duty in 2013, that I can actually take that rock out of my backpack, that I don't have to carry it with me. And it sounds funny, like to understand that, but that's some of the stuff that I'm learning how to do. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Paloma, are there any other questions from the audience, so to speak? Any other questions, Paloma?
Yes, we have one more question. Folks wanted to know, how do you know what to do after college? My parents often ask what to do with my major. How do I make my first job decisions after I leave here?
Alex, why don't you start with that one?
Oh gosh, I'm probably the worst person to ask that. It's a journey. And I think one thing that everyone will see at Notre Dame and in their time after Notre Dame is you will need to be doing a lot of balancing, first of all. As Latinos, we certainly know that our parents in general and oftentimes have made great sacrifices for us to be in the position that we're in, right? So we want to do whatever we can to help repay their sacrifices. But at the same time, you also need to pursue your heart, pursue your dreams. I assume everyone here had a variety of majors and a variety of a focus as to where their class load led them and where their majors led them. So for some, that pathway will be a corporate job at the outset. For others, it may be a year of service or nonprofit work initially, and then followed maybe by some corporate work. The overall message being there is no wrong pathway. If you remember what I said at the very beginning of this, is that God writes straight and crooked lines. Continue to put your faith in him. And I feel very comfortable saying that on this panel and in this environment. Continue to lean on your faith and continue to lean on the things that you have learned, both spiritually, academically, mentally, all the above at Notre Dame, because that will lead you down the right path. There is no one solution. There is no one formula. Everyone will have to figure it out for themselves. And also what works for one person may not work for another person, or it may not work for two people equally at the same time. Just continue to carve that path out for yourself, always remembering to take care of your mental health, take care of the obligations that you have to your family and to your community. But only you can figure out what that right path is for you.
Timmy?
Well, as the mother of many college students, one that's at ND and one that just recently graduated last year, I have a lot of advice. So, I'm a big believer in networking. And so I know this isn't answering the question and just giving advice, but it's top of mind for me. And I'm a big believer in many things in terms of finding a job. And I honestly think that finding a job is like so top of mind for so many of you students, especially your junior year. Like it's not even your senior year anymore. There's a lot of pressure from folks like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I've even said it. So it's like, I'm a mom, and I'm just going to rattle off all this advice. Number one, network. Go to your alumni clubs. You may not go, but show up at one of the game watches. Start talking to all the people in that room. tell them who you are. The alumni have been great at connecting people. And, you know, maybe that's not your thing, but I think you need to do it. Second, I do think that, like Alex said, you're not going to know all the answers. You're not going to have a job right away when you get out. I mean, of course, we all hope for that, but it's really about making sure that you're putting yourself out there and looking at what's available. Like if you're interested, maybe let's say you did like me, I was FTT in government, and all of a sudden I thought, well, maybe I want to do healthcare. We'll start going to a few healthcare things and looking for alumni to maybe pique that interest, help you feed that interest. You're gonna get a job, and everything that you've done has prepared you for that. You have a well-rounded education. It may not happen overnight, but you are going to find something. You have to have patience. You have to have a lot of faith. You're so young to even be looking now. You know, nobody figures anything out right away. And if they did, you know, good for them. Half of them, probably not. But I think that, you know, there's a lot to do in terms of preparing yourself. Having, again, I can't endorse enough going to those career services and getting your resume up to snuff, and starting to really talk to people about what you even think you might want to do, or maybe what you don't. But there's going to be pathways out there for sure, and they're going to align with what you're looking for. And like Alex said, it may not be exactly what you do the first year out. You may take a job that is going to lead to somewhere else. Every single thing you do is going to prepare you for something else. So yeah, it's going to be okay.
Liz?
So I did a lot of community service, even during the semester while at Notre Dame, in the local community, which I really enjoyed. I got to know the people. I got to know some of the really top issues in the Latinx community. And around junior year or end of junior year, I asked myself, how do I turn this into a career? What additional skills do I need to build on? Because the only true word that came to mind that would describe what I wanted to do was advocacy, and it had been something I'd been doing my whole life as a first generation everything. And so, you know, starting with that question and then talking to your mentors, talking to the career services office, I'm going to hammer home what Timmy is saying, because it's huge. It's huge. They're the experts. They're literally paid to do this, to help you. And so really understanding where your limitations are, and then finding the resources to really build you up and start planning, all right, what skills do you have, not just academically and your experience at Notre Dame, but also life experience. There's so many skills that you acquire over your lived actual experiences that we take for granted. And build it from there, but really try to enjoy as much of your undergraduate experiences. No other time like this time, right? You can still ask the serious questions, don't get me wrong, I did. But make sure you are enjoying everything that you're doing, because that will be reflected down the road on your, you know, when it comes to your grades, when it comes to your skills, when it comes to your passion, when it comes to your resume and experiences.
Wonderful. Christina, would you like to offer some thoughts here?
Sure. So a lot of people often ask me, you know, what they should major in if they want to go to law school, and what would be, you know, make them successful in law school. And Liz, you probably, you know, hear kind of some of these things too. And I normally tell people it really does. It's not like med school where you need certain, you know, requirements. So major in whatever you really, really like and are really, really interested in, because then you will do well in those subjects and in those topics and in those things. And when you do well, you do better, you're excited about it, and then your grades are better. And then that's going to help you help your resume look good, or you know, volunteer with organizations that you like, that you know, if you like dogs, you know, volunteer at a shelter or something, you know, do what you like, because then you'll get, you're just more fulfilled that way. So I think, you know, when you're in college, and what are you going to do with your degree, right? You hear that all the time from parents. What are you going to do with a a film degree, Alex? What are you going to do with that kind of thing? In this day, more so than in my day, because I graduated in '89, so that was a whole different thing. So Timmy, you are not the oldest person here by far. But back in the day, it mattered a little bit more what you majored in and what you were going to do. But now just do what makes you happy and then find what it is that will fulfill you. Get your degree, you do everything that you can do and then really enjoy the classes, take the classes you want to take, and then try and go out there and find all of the opportunities that are available to you, because it's not just, okay, I got a degree in education, I have to be a teacher. Yes, you can be a teacher, but you can do a multitude of other things as well. So I think be successful, and then it just is springboard into everything. Christine, I think you're next.
Will do. Thank you. So I placed in the chat for anybody that's interested in going into medicine, a really good first stop. The link is to the AAMC, and the intention there's information on what to do for pre-med and then some summer programs. So for pre-med folks looking to what to do after, so I was a non-traditional student. I didn't go to Notre Dame 4 years and then go directly into medical school because of what happened with my family. I took 2 years off, studied for the MCAT for the first year, did a post-baccalaureate program, and then did research. Again, I really like what Alex said, like God made straight lines and crooked lines, and I was a crooked line, and I think that's part of my journey. The intention there is, again, go there to see information, look, if it's not feeling right, like you're not ready to go in, that's okay. Always listen. You know yourself best. And then summer programs are something that I really recommend. There are programs by the AMC to learn about how it is to be a physician for underrepresented minorities. And that's one of the programs that I did too, that helped me really solidify my desire to go. So.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christine,
Yes.
very, very much. Well, I think it's just about time for us to close. Just very briefly, know that the Institute for Latino Studies, for everyone in the audience and certainly for our panelists, is here at the university to work with you, to help you. We now have 33 affiliated faculty members. The entering class at Notre Dame is 14% Latinx. We have about 60 Latino Studies majors and minors. We have about 30 students who are in graduate school in different departments who are interested in Latino studies. We have community outreach, both to promote spirituality as well as to promote leadership. We work with our faculty to guarantee that they get tenure and to guarantee that they get promoted. And so we see ourselves as primarily a service organization, one that is designed to institutionalize in the sense of make permanent not just the presence of Latino students, but the presence of all things Latinx here at the university. Faculty, alumni, students, staff, and everyone, so that the university better appreciates, it already does, but so that it better appreciates how significant Latinx communities are, not just to the future of the country, but to the future of the Catholic Church, and therefore to the future of Notre Dame. Father John, our president, has told me what all of you do at ILS is so important to the future of the university. And I think a number of us have worked very hard. It started with Gil Cardenas, of course, as the founding director of ILS, but many of us have worked very hard to make sure that the university internalizes that vision and internalizes its understanding of our potential, not just to be the future, but to be an important contributing member of the university as it grows over the next 20, 30, 40 years or more. One of the things that we'd like to say at ILS today is that if one thinks of the legacy that one wants to leave our greatest treasures, for those of us who are fortunate enough, our children and our grandchildren, if one wants to think of what we want to leave them as a legacy, I see our work at Notre Dame and the HAND organization demonstrates that, as it did tonight beautifully. It demonstrates that we want to leave a legacy that's better, that's richer, and that empowers Notre Dame to be better than it ever could be without our presence and especially without our success, which only now grows and grows and grows. And we're at a point as an intellectual community, as a cultural community, as a community of believers in Notre Dame. We're at a point now, and I think we're at a critical point where we can, in fact, begin to transform the institution to be more what our children and our grandchildren are likely to want, are likely to need. And we certainly know that those generations that come in the future, especially first generation students who come in the future, will be better served to the extent that we all work together toward a common goal. And that goal is making sure that we empower our communities to get everything they have worked so hard to get. In a commission that I was on, we had a mom come talk to us who was involved in a parent education program. And she said, Latino students don't go to college. And we all sat back and thought, I wonder where she's going to go with this. And where she went in her second statement was absolutely brilliant. This was someone who was an immigrant mother, someone who didn't have a great deal of education. And she said, Latino families go to college. And that's the key. We as a community and through our families know that if we all work together, we can achieve even greater success than the tremendous success that we've been exposed to here today. My personal thanks to everyone who participated on the panel. My personal thanks to everyone in the audience. My personal thanks to Paloma Garcia Lopez, our Associate Director, and everyone who helped organize this event. As appropriate, let's all please give each other a hand. No pun intended. Give each other a hand. It's just wonderful, a wonderful event. So there's a lot of information on the chat about addresses and communications and things of that sort. Please take advantage of it. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to contact us at ILS, and we'll put you in contact with alumni. As we're able to, we'll go through hand and have them help us, as they always have been helpful to us, to be able to move forward. So thank you, everyone. Good night, and we greatly appreciate your participation. And more than anything, don't worry, I'm not going to sing the alma mater. Go Irish.
Irish.
Go Irish. Thank
right,
you, everyone.
Irish.
Good night. Buenas noches.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Nice to meet everybody. Good night.
Right. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, all.
Do I stay on, or should we go ahead and get off? I don't know.
I think we can get off, but thank you for everything,
Okay.
Christina.
Absolutely. Thank you. It was always wonderful. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you
Great to work with
soon.
you.
Thank you.
Let's keep in touch.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.